In this episode of Moi TV, the first part in a 3-part mini-series special. Today we're going to be looking at the hottest trends of 2020. If you want to be in the know when it comes to aesthetic trends and how this is going to impact photography in your business over the coming year, then this is 100% the episode for you. Hey, it's Laura here. Welcome to another episode of Moi TV. I think before we get going that you should definitely subscribe to the channel. If you hit the bell when you do that, you're going to get notified every single Friday when a new episode comes out. Last week on the show, I told you that I was going to be doing a 3-part mini-series special to take us over the festive break so that you can begin the new year with all of the hot trends you need to know, maybe do a little bit more research on, ready to make 2020 a killer one for your business. Now, I've spent hours and hours doing lots of research for this one. So this one is all about saving you a whole lot of time. These are some of the wider trends that I want to go into in this part of the mini-series, and it gives you an overall idea of how things are shaping up in terms of trend predictions for next year. In the second part of this 3-part special, I'm going to be deep diving on my most favourite trend prediction for 2020, and then in our final part of the 3-part special, I'm going to be going into how all of this aesthetic stuff is going to affect human behaviour, or so we predict. We'll have to wait and see, of course, until next year to see if any of it came true. Let's go. The first idea I want to talk to you about today, I've named hyped concept. And I don't know if this is because we're all in a celebratory mood, because we're entering into a new decade. I think probably if you go through the annals of history, you can see how people predict the next decade with these big statements, you know, beginning of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, that kind of thing. I think we can definitely see that in some of the trends that we have coming up for next year in an aesthetic way. A lot of people in the design space are ushering in this new era of what a cyberpunk colour scheme is. Now what this means is intense colours, neon colours, very vibrant colours, colours with a bit of a hologram quality to them. If you can remember stickers and stuff from the 80s that we all had, that kind of colourway is predicted to be massive this year. It also has a bit of a vibe around all things to do with space age. I think we all see that going into this new era is going to be filled with things that we can't even begin to conceive. And when we're in those times, history has shown us that we tend to go into this space age look. Metallics with colour. Be prepared to see a lot of that this year. I've already predicted how this is going to affect headshots, and particularly personal branding. In fact, we've seen some of my clients already jumping on this, and I'm talking about green screen photography with a beautiful color gradient behind them and having that adaptability so that if we all start wanting to look like robots, those clients in particular are going to be ahead of this trend because they can simply put themselves onto a metallic holographic cyberpunk colorway. If you're watching this episode and you're a little bit frustrated that I'm going to be doing these trend predictions over the festive break, then don't worry. All you need to do is subscribe to Annals and Apertures. There's a link to do that in the show notes below, and here's the link now coming up on the screen. So when you subscribe to this list, I'm going to make sure that you get emailed a link to this show, as well as a little bit of a blog breakdown, so that when you come back to work at the beginning of the new year, all of these ideas are in one place ready for you to binge them. Next up then is the idea of the layered look, and in photography this is exactly what I mean. I've already hinted at, we're cutting people out so that we can put them on a conceptual background or onto a gradient background. That layered look in terms of design and overall aesthetic is going to be massive this year. We've seen some big fashion houses jumping on the idea of paper collage, which of course is a very layered concept, to graphic designers using isometry to create a 3D effect in the way that they create their designs. It could be that the way that this trend evolves in terms of photography is that we're going to see more and more brands and my clients coming to me asking to be perfectly cut out in a dramatic lighting scheme so that they can then be layered on top customized illustration, and the illustration is then put on top of another photograph of a wall. So you can imagine somebody flying through the air, perfectly lit, with this kind of pretend on-brand graffiti behind them. I think something like that is probably going to get into the market later on in the year, but if you want to be ahead of the curve, that's the kind of thing you should be thinking about if you're planning headshots photography or a new website redesign in 2020. This flows on through then to product photography, and in particular cut-out product photography. So if we're not selling the person behind the business, and in fact it's the thing that the person behind the business has manufactured, you can also expect to see that cut out. Taking this one step further then is anatomy of a product. So you can imagine that you're going to see animations of beautifully shot product photography, so that I don't know, like a bottle will open in front of your eyes and then the thing will squirt out of the bottle and it'll be on a repeat when you go on the website. Or it will be a fully deconstructed item. Imagine food, so a deconstructed sushi roll where the fish is floating, the wasabi is floating, the seaweed's floating, but you can see how they all compact and go back together. This is going to be really interesting in the way that product photography is going to advance, but it still builds on to that layered aesthetic that I just told you about. The last big idea I want to leave you with then, before we all sign off for the Christmas break, is this idea of provocative optimism. So in last week's episode, you saw me sharing how brands have worked on being very emotional and almost trying to bring out intense emotions in us as a response, as a way to grab attention in a more noisy climate. Provocative optimism is like this, but in a much more jubilant and celebratory way. So this has been brought in from fashion primarily so far, and we've seen these giant big bold silhouettes, very vivid colours, pleats that goes with the layered vibe, and we're seeing this idea of celebrating that we've all got into the 2020s. And it's kind of a loose idea at this stage, I think, and that's probably intentional because we're not sure of which way it's going to go. But things are bigger and brighter, more bold, more colourful. Think about this energy and what that stirs up for you in you and your brand for next year. Before we sign off, I want you to comment below and tell me which of these big ideas feels like the right one for your business aesthetic, and maybe share what kind of ideas you're starting to develop when it comes to how you might implement them across the rest of your business over 2020. I'm signing off for Christmas now, but don't worry, I will be here next week with part 2 of this 3-part special. You go away, formulate on those ideas with lots of cheese and a big cocktail, and I will see you next week. Mwah.
Now before you go anywhere, don't forget to subscribe. Mwah.